And that was so interesting what you were telling me earlier about benefits, but you got to go beyond what we think of as benefits.
Yeah, I think most people tend, especially more beginner copywriters, they tend to just pile on benefits, and they think, well, if I just get enough benefits and it's just like heavy enough and weighs enough, it'll outweigh all their skepticism and everything else. And the reality is that it's not you get to a certain point where it's just not believable to say how you can make $1 million, you can cure your disease overnight, or whatever it is. That even if you make very slight benefits, even if you could only make $10,000, if you can make that as powerful to them as possible and as real as possible and as believable as possible, then you can sell them. It doesn't have to be $1 million. And there's a couple ways to do that. One way is, you bring in the emotional component of the benefit. So it's not just, $10,000, but now it's like, what does that $10,000 mean emotionally to you in terms of taking care of your family? In terms of not being berated by your brother-in-law at the Thanksgiving dinner table about all the money he's making.
Right.
Making you feel a certain way.
Right.
Seeing those, dramatizing those benefits, like imagine a guy showing up at your door with a check for $10,000. Like, how great would that be? Or, those
How
kinds.
great would it be to not need somebody to show up at your door with a check?
And how great would it be not to always be thinking about that? Right. So adding drama to it a lot of times. That's why sometimes we'll translate $10,000 into something dramatic, like a $10,000 car or something, vacation to Paris.
Right. Something more visceral, tangible that you can wrap your head around.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something that you've had to go without. It's always the powerful thing with the kids, right? Having to say no to your kids all the time.
Right.
Finally take them to Disney World.
Yep. Yeah, that's a nice emotional kind of pulling to it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think the third part of that too is the implications of benefits. Like, what is, there's a thing where you keep saying, and that means, right? So you get $10,000, and that means you'll be able to afford the things that you want, blah, blah, blah. And that means that you won't feel like a schlub anymore because you can't afford all these things. And that means you'll become the person you've always wanted to be, and you'll have this great confidence as you go through life, which will attract you even more money. And that means you'll just be ultimately happy and fulfilled, and, all the things that, that's kind of like I got to the end. But you get to the end by saying, and that means, and that means, and that means, and it's just a whole different, it's so different than just like we started by saying, piling on, benefits.
And does that come from the research more than anything? We think about understanding the avatar. Like, how do we know if our that means is matching what they want?
Yeah, that's great. I think it comes from understanding the avatar and understanding the person. Sometimes it just comes from putting yourself in the shoes of the person. It's like, okay, if I were this person that didn't, let's say I didn't have $10,000. Let's say that was a lot of money to me, or that was like I was living paycheck to paycheck. What would $10,000 mean? If I can envision that, I don't need to go interview them. I don't need to do research. Like, I know what that means, right? Because I can see, oh God, that means I can't just go eat dinner anywhere I want.
Right.
That, Ted Kikola used to just sort of lock himself in a room and close his eyes and think about being, putting himself into the mind of the prospect.
Right. So you don't have to have literally walked in those shoes, but you have to have empathy to think about and feel what it would be like to wear those shoes.
Some of it is you could see for yourself if you just kind of. And then some of it is when you talk to people, there's always those things you didn't like, wow, I never realized that when someone is overweight, they're embarrassed all the time. I never realized that when someone is poor, they're embarrassed by being poor. I never realized that when someone is poor that they, their biggest fear is there's going to be some bill that's going to come and throw them into bankruptcy.
Right.
And maybe they'll get thrown in jail for not paying their bills. I don't, whatever that is. That never would have occurred to me. That's the sort of thing it's great to get, directly from people.
I always think about when I first moved back to Florida, I was between careers, I was broke. And my sister-in-law used to fill her car with gas, and she'd lock it and let it fill, and I'd be going, wow, what's that like? Because I had to think about how much gas I could afford to put in my car.
Right.
It'd be $10 or maybe I can go 12 today. I'm feeling all right. I'm liquid. You know, and so now when I fill every time I click that thing, it's anchored there. I remember what it's like to not be able to click the gas pump.
You know, those little things are so powerful, and they're also powerful because if you bring them up in the copy, like if you say in kind of copy, like, I know what it's like to feel like, do you stop the gas from filling at $10 or $20 because you can't afford more than that? They go, boy, that person knows me.
That's right.
I could do business with this person. I want this person to help me. It's the same thing when you talk about having arthritis. I think this is an example Paris uses a lot. You have arthritis. Very few people know that that don't have arthritis know that, like, it hurts to open a jar. And so you're like, oh God, I got to open a jar. This is going to hurt. I got to turn this doorknob. It's going to hurt. And if you write to them about that, you just mention that in passing. Yeah. There's a bond there that's amazing.
I remember our friend Marcel Allison writing about incontinence and going to the adult diaper aisle and chatting up the women shopping for those products, because she has that kind of personality.
Right.
And one of the things she learned was it was not only complicated to find the right pair, but then the checkout was quite embarrassing, and so they'd buy other stuff.
Right.
You know,
that's such precious knowledge. When you know your prospect to that level, you have such. I mean, we think copywriting is about writing, you know, and you know, it's not to a large extent. It's that, you know, what makes someone like John a great copywriter is great psychological insight and looking for those great psychological insights. And it's like that, knowing that embarrassment.
It's great stuff.